before I start with, let me give you what is the requirement for this course. So the minimum expectation is you should have the basic testing concepts like test case design, test scenario design, test execution, and defect management. And then we can go ahead with Pega testing concepts. So before I start with, let me just give you a brief introduction on the testing life cycle. Testing life cycle basically starts with the requirements gathering. The requirement gathering is like the requirements we get it through any business requirement document, or now it is like an use cases or user story in Jira. Once we got the requirements, the next step is to understand the requirements. Once we are while understanding the requirements, if we are stuck somewhere, we'll go to the business analyst and get it cleared. And once we have got the full understanding of the requirements, we will start with the test scenario design. Test scenario is a high level design, like on what we are testing it. It can be, example, it can be a login functionality. The simple scenario would be testing of the login functionality. And in test case design, we write the detailed steps of each scenario. As I said, a login functionality, one test case should be give a valid username and a valid password. We should be able to log in. And another test case would be a negative test case, like valid username and an invalid password. We should not be able to log in. Like that, for one scenario, we can have any number of test cases. So once we are done with the test scenario design and test case design, the next step is we'll wait for the development team to give away the code. Once the code is ready in our testing environment, we'll start with the test execution of already drafted test cases. So if we take a test case and we follow the test steps, the result could be either a pass or a fail. If it is a pass, we'll simply execute it in ALM or Jira as a passed. If it is a fail, we'll log it as a defect and assign it to a particular developer. The next step in testing lifecycle is a defect management. Defect management is like we have logged a defect and we'll wait for the defect to be fixed by development team and move it to retest. Once it is in retest, it could be retested again following the test case steps. And if it is passed, we'll simply close the defect. And if it is not passed, we'll reopen and reassign it to the developer. So this is the testing lifecycle. And in Pega testing, what we require more in Pega testing. So in Pega testing, we should understand the business process and few of the Pega concepts. So what is the Pega? Pega is basically a business process management tool. Like we have other business process management tools like IBM BPM, APM, etc. The better feature of Pega is it can be developed in very short time and it is more flexible with requirement changes. If I have to tell you where Pega is implemented, it is currently being implemented in banking domain, insurance domain, healthcare, life sciences, telecom industry. In almost all domains, Pega is being used. So, any doubts?
Ma'am, you can continue.
Okay. So as I said, Pega is a business process management tool. Before we understand what is a business process management, we'll understand what is a business process. Business process is the involvement of tasks and the logic. this is a simple Pega introduction. As I said, Pega is a BPM tool. And if you understand business process, it is the involvement of tasks and a logic. So what are tasks? Tasks are nothing but gathering and reviewing of data. The data can be gathered through any individuals working in user interface or through automated exchange. In simple, if we take a customer care an example, the customer care receives the request or a complaint either through IVR process like through a call or through an email or through chat or anything. That is called a request, and that is called a particular task. And what is the logic? Logic is an optimal outcome or of that particular task. Like if the customer is calling for a, say suppose, return of his or her product. So what can be the logic? The way the return process should be there, like how the agent should come to the customer, they should pick up the product and the refund. This is nothing but a logic. So combined together, this task and logic is called a business process. Then what is business process management? Business process management is how we are tackling this business process, how we are automating this business process. Is nothing but a business process management. Like how efficient it should be. So suppose if we call a bank and somebody will answer, what is your requirement? And you will say there is an issue with my debit card or something, credit card. Then if then they will route it to some other person. Some other person may say, this is not under my task. I deal about accounts, not cards. And again, it will be routed to some other person. This is very unstructured. So as to keep it in a structured manner and to automate the flow, the business process management has come into picture. So what is Pega deals with BPM is, Pega automates the business process management in very simple way, in an efficient way, and in a more flexible way. So before we'll see how it is implemented and everything, let us just understand about the business process, because this is the more important before we test the Pega concepts. Like in everywhere, in whatever project you're in, with every application, these 6 steps are involved. These are known as 6 R's. Let me explain this with you a small example. First one is receiving. We call to a bank, suppose, and we'll ask for an address change. That means the bank person is receiving the request for an address change. The first step is receiving. The bank agent has received the request. Second step is routing. Bank agent is like a BPO person, like he just receives the request and he can't work on it. He has to route it to some other person. Say suppose he has to route it to another supervisor. He will route this particular task to supervisor. This is known as routing logic. Next, it is routed to the supervisor, and the supervisor do the research. Research here I am explaining about address change. So the supervisor will see what are the requirements for address change. Like you should have a valid address proof, like that. He will do the research and then respond. Respond is accept or reject. If it is rejected, what are the steps? If it is accepted, what are the steps? That is known as responding. And then reporting. Reporting is like all the steps are recorded. That means agent A has received a request from customer so and so, customer X. Agent A received the request from customer X, and then it is routed to supervisor 1, and the supervisor 1 has accepted or rejected. All these steps are recorded. Thus, that is nothing but reporting. And then resolving the request. Resolving is here the address change. If you are accepting with the address change, the address gets changed in all the databases. And if it is rejected, that means it is rejected for so and so. That is address proof is not a valid one. We cannot do the address change. So this is the life cycle of a business process. So this is what is the main Pega concept, and this is what we test also. So if I have to say in testing concept, we will log in as agent A first, and we'll see if we have received any request or not. And then we ourselves will route it to supervisor. Then again we'll log in as supervisor to test if we have received or the routing logic is correct. So instead of supervisor 1, it should not go to some other manager. The routing logic should work. So this routing logic, the receiving logic, everything will be testing in Pega. It may change from healthcare domain to insurance domain to another domain, but the steps and this business process remains unchanged. So this is case management. So unlike, as I said, you a very simple example, but in enterprise workflows in bigger organizations, it is not so simple. It involves many workflows and multiple work parties. Work parties in the sense, in my example, as I said, a supervisor, an agent. These are the roles. We'll be understanding about these in our later sessions. But for now, case management is Pega implements case management concept. Like this becomes easier in an organized way. So if we take an insurance claim, there are many insurances like health insurance, vehicle insurance. So to bring everything under one roof, Pega is implementing this case management. So here in this PPT, we see it is about, I think it's a bank, and it's about an account holder information. In account holder information, we have the complete application, mailing address, and everything in one place. The next step is about opening an account. It is about a background check and the credit report. So here, whenever the person wants a mailing address change, we will straight away go to account holder information, which becomes very easy instead of navigating to everything. This is good in Pega. So next I want to discuss about few of the terms used in Pega. These are the simple terms which are required for the testing person to know. One is operator ID, the other one is access groups, and the third one is portals. What is an operator ID? Operator ID is nothing but the login ID with which we log in into the Pega application. Agent, supervisor, they'll have one IDs, and this operator ID is specific to organization. Healthcare domain, they may have some other operator IDs. These are customized, and we can create our own operator IDs either through a manual process or through an automated process. And this access groups and portals are configured for one operator ID. If we take access group is nothing but it is an access. It's a type of access for the operator. Access group, basically we have two kinds of access for an operator. One access is for the accessing of the application. They may have multiple applications, and which application the user should have access will be given by access groups. And the other access is what the user can perform. Say suppose the agent can just view the task, but he cannot approve or reject the task. So that is, he is not having access. Only the supervisor is having access whether to accept or to reject. So this is given in access groups. And the other one is portals. Portals is a workspace of operator. Like when any operator logs in, what he sees in UI is nothing but a portal. The portal of manager is different from a clerk. They have different views. The manager may have a dashboard kind of thing where he can see how many tasks the clerk is performing, how many tasks the supervisor is performing. The same dashboard is not available for supervisor or clerks. That means the portals for manager, clerks, and the supervisor are different. So this is a simple login page of Pega. It may change from application to application, but is usually the same. So the username in screenshot I've seen SAE1RTech, that is known as an operator ID. So this is a simple screen of it is a Pega development screen. So this is where the development team performs the development actions and everything. But sometimes, not sometimes, many times, even QA teams are also given read-only access for this designer studio. Why? I'll tell you. So let me tell you explain you each and every concept. This top one which we see is known as the header, and the left side is known as Explorer panel, and this bottom one which we see are of debugging tools, and this white portion which we see is known as workspace area. Okay, and if we go to the top, SAE1 application. If we launch the Designer Studio, we can navigate to different landing pages. And SAE1 application is one of the applications. We can change the application and we can create a new application. We can switch between applications by using this Designer Studio dropdown. And launch. Launch is for new portal launch. If say suppose for particular access, see for manager, he should be able to see supervisor portal and he should be work as a clerk also. He should be having access to all the lower portals. So at that time, if you want to switch from manager portal to supervisor portal, he can do it through this launch icon. And if we come with the Explorer panel, it has data, like in data we'll have this decision tables, data related things. In records we'll have all records at one place, like suppose all operator IDs at one place, all activities at one place, like that. The main required for testing concept is the below debugging tools. So in below debugging tools also we are mainly concentrated on these two, tracer and clipboard. UI inspector is also a debugging tool, but it is mostly used by developers. We'll deal about the tracer and clipboard. Let me explain you what is a tracer. Tracer basically gives you all the activities, all the rules that are being invoked at that particular moment. Say suppose if you are clicking on a submit button, If you're clicking on a submit button, what are the functions being called? Like what are the rules being executed at that time? They're being recorded in tracer. Before clicking on submit, if we switch the tracer on, we can see all the rules being invoked at that time. The second one is clipboard. Clipboard mainly deals with the data. Like if you are on a UI, where you'll have first name, second name, last name, date of birth, other fields, UI fields. At that time, what is the data being captured for that field? We can see it in clipboard. Clipboard also will have some hidden values, like in development phase, if you have configured some fields but which we are not mapping in UI, if it is capturing some null values, those we can see it using clipboard. UI inspector is like, it is a live UI, like you're designing while you are designing the login functionality, username, password, you'll keep it in a box. If you want to inspect that box, we'll be using the UI. Coming to the next one is performance and alerts. Performance is it is mainly used in if you want to test the performance of say suppose an API. You are integrating with an external system, a SOAP UI integration. If you want to see the performance, then dev team will be using this performance. And alerts are like so basically Pega has some inbuilt rules. So if you are not abiding by the rules, or if the development is not abiding by the rules, we'll get these alerts and these guardrail warnings, which are not required for us. We'll mainly deal about tracer and clipboard. And here on the top, you can see the operator. On clicking on this, we should be seeing this access groups. And if we click on access group, then we can change the accesses. We can assign the porters, the mapping basically. So as I said in the beginning, this is a simple case management structure. In the initially, I have shown you right the account holder information, this part, complete application, verify narrative. How do we configure this? It looks something like this. So first one is request entry, enter request details. See, third one, if we see, it is a quote. What is this quote is? Complete code and review request. So here it is like in complete code, we have some application to fill make. In review request, it's the same application, we want to show it in a read-only mode. This can be accessed, this can be achieved through this. I'm just saying it an example. So here if it is create vendors is the user should be able to create more vendors. It is something the user should perform on it. It may redirect to some other some other tab, some other UI page, some pop-up may come, and where you can add the vendors information. It is just the case flow, like how you are managing it, everything. And fourth one is approval. Get program approval, get manager approval. At every stage, the approval will have either approved phase or rejected phase. And everywhere the case will travel to different phases. If it is approved, it will go to some other process, and if it is rejected, it goes to some other process. And this is just a simple example of case management structure. So what do mainly we test in Pega is like, say suppose once we receive a request, It can be through IVR, as I said in beginning. Once we receive a request, a unique ID will be created for each request, which is known as the case ID. Next, when it is going through phases, the case ID will be unique, but the status assigned on that case remains changing. Like initially, it may be open. If it is going for any approval phase, it might be pending approval or pending manager program approval. These all are customized. It's based on the requirements. Whatever the requirement says, it should be pending in progress. It will be pending in progress, but the status will be changing. We should also test this. What to say? Test the case status at every level of the stage. And once it is closed, it will be closed or that's it. Any questions?